All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Lasting Learning Podcast. So glad you're here. Today, I have a guy on here who I'm just super excited to talk to and get to know on a deeper level. First of all, he's got a haircut a lot like mine, which is always a good thing. Means that brain is just growing and swelling, which is outstanding. But he has a resume that it's mind blowing. It is humbling and it's inspiring, and I'm going to pick it apart today. He's a guy who has spent basically his entire career out west, and as a Michigan man, I always appreciate hearing a different perspective. He is a former teacher, educator of the year, secondary principal of the year. He's currently a superintendent. He's worked in multiple states. He's in the Jostens Hall of Fame. I mean, this guy is doing it all. He is well on his way down that road to awesome. Darrin, thank you so much for being here today, man.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dave. I'm really excited to have an opportunity to visit with you, maybe share a little bit of my story, and absolutely talk some road to awesome, man. That's what it's all about.
Well, let's do that. Let's talk about your road to awesome, because as I look at you right now, I would say you're pretty awesome. But that road to getting here has been kind of a winding road, right? So talk to us. Tell people who you are, where you're from, and what got you here today.
Yeah, absolutely. So Darrin Peppard. I'm currently superintendent of schools in West Grand School District, which is in a really small little town in the Colorado mountains. So most people, when they think about Colorado, they think about skiing and big game hunting and the Colorado River and camping and all that kind of stuff. And I live right in the heart of that. Actually, my house is about a 3-minute walk to the Colorado River. We're pretty much on the headwaters. So just a beautiful, beautiful place to live. Small school district, about 450 kids, about 80 total faculty that we have. So it's interesting. It's the smallest district I've ever been a part of. Prior to being here, I was a high school principal in Southwest Wyoming. And that was a building of about 1,400 kids, 120 staff members. And before that, I was a classroom teacher, first at Kingman Junior High School and then at Kingman High School in Kingman, Arizona, which the only way people know where Kingman is if you've ever driven between Phoenix and Las Vegas. It's the halfway point. Otherwise, nobody has a clue where that spot is. But I'm starting my 26th year in education. I respect the fact that you're a Michigan man. I am truly a Wyoming guy. I grew up in Wyoming. Have graduated twice from the University of Wyoming. My undergrad and my doctorate are both from the University of Wyoming. And when you've got your home state, you've got your home state. So, maybe I'm in Colorado, but I'll always be a Wyoming boy at heart.
Well, I appreciate that Wyoming love. I had the pleasure a few years ago to go to Wyoming and do quite a bit of work in Star Valley.
Oh yeah.
Amazing area. It is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, there's nobody around. It is just you, God, and the sky. So absolutely. I understand that appreciation. So, I mean, what got you to leave the comfort of Wyoming to come work in Colorado? I mean, it's different, right?
Yeah,
Surrounded by these big mountains and kind of tucked away.
It is. I think it was a couple of things. I've been the high school principal for a number of years. I'd been at Rock Springs High for 11 total years between assistant and high school principal, and loved the work we were doing. But I'm the type of person that I'm always kind of looking at what's that next challenge, I looked at Rock Springs High when I got there. Graduation rate under 70%, 84% average daily attendance. I mean, we struggled. Really broken culture. When I left, attendance rates well into the mid strong 90s, graduation rates well over 80%. And in that community, that's an incredible number. I was ready for the next thing. And my daughter was going to be graduating from high school. I got to be my daughter's high school principal, by the way. That is like the greatest honor of my life. What an incredible, we could talk about that for an hour, so I'll stop there, but what an awesome honor that was. But I was ready for the next challenge, and actually interviewed, a couple places in Wyoming, a couple places in Colorado. And there was something about West Grand when I came here and interviewed. I'm like, this is the right fit. This is the place, this is the next challenge. And not West Grand wasn't broken. West Grand was in a really good place, but it was, hey, we can go from good to great. And there's some great, opportunities to do this. So, that, and honestly, just living in this area, in this environment, it's pretty spectacular.
That's
So,
awesome. Well,
yeah.
you are definitely this change agent. You're this guy that's always looking to elevate the game of yourself and others.
Mhm.
So I get that appeal, and I would probably argue that it's probably more challenging to change cultures and systems and processes in a place that is already good, as you describe it,
Mhm.
because a lot of people said there's no incentive, there's no reason, there's no rationale to change,
Yeah.
compared to the experience you might have had in Wyoming. So I'm going to go back to Wyoming
Mhm.
first, and then we'll come back to where you currently are. You mentioned that you were your daughter's principal. I've got 4 kids, and I committed to my kids that I would never be their administrator because they know my style, and it probably wouldn't be good for me, for them, their teachers, or
Yeah.
anybody. So I'll respect your decision to do that because you are probably a much different person than I am and probably handle it with way more grace. But knowing that you had to change some things in that school, knowing that there was probably at times some tension or some moving that had to take place. Did you ever encounter that awkwardness where your daughter is there, she's experiencing some of that discomfort and some of that change while you're leading and charging forward?
For the most part, no. And the big reason that I would say that is when I first got there, she was in first grade.
Okay.
And so by the time she came to Rock Springs High, we had made some real drastic improvements and changes. I don't want to make it sound like, Rock Springs was like totally broken. There were some incredible things that we needed to enhance, and we needed to tell the story a lot better and maybe frame it a little bit differently. But then there were a lot of other things that, we just had to change the culture. The culture that we had there when I first arrived was, it was about like catching everybody doing things wrong,
Mm.
and I mean, the phrase that was used, and ultimately I fell right into this, and I'm embarrassed that I was this guy for about a year when I was there. But it was, I'm going to ding that kid. I'm going to ding that teacher. It was like we were running around looking for things that were wrong. And I know in education, we do this way too much. And so, yes, I mean, there was certainly, a moment that shifted that. And but yeah, by the time Liz, my daughter, got to the high school, there were still some moments, where she experienced some awkwardness. I'll be honest with you though, Dave, probably the most awkward moment when she was there was the first time, and there were 2. The first time that I encountered her in the hallway as a student. So my area was the main hallway. It was lined with benches that we had built while I was there. That was my office away from office. So I always was out there. And so during passing period, kids would come cruising by. And the first time I locked eyes with my daughter, and I look this direction because that's exactly where she came from. And we both looked at each other like, what do we do? And then the second awkward moment was like 2 days later when she's walking in the same place, holding hands with a freshman boy. And she looked comfortable, but boy, he didn't.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And see right there, that's why my kids have said, Dad, please don't ever go to my
Yeah,
school.
but they get used to it. And then like at a point in time, like my daughter had moved into my office.
Wow.
I mean, thank goodness when she finally could start driving, because then she moved into the car. But so she was on the high school dance team, and dance team members, oh my gosh, they carry a lot of stuff. It's like they're hockey players, how much stuff they carry. And so she had like her whole portion of my office. I can't even say corner. It was huge. So yeah, they get over it.
That's funny. That's awesome. So we're talking about you as the leader of that school and how you fell into that trap of dinging people, playing that gotcha. And I know that that's something a lot of us do. I mean, you say we fell for that trap, but that's kind of the way the system has been developed, isn't it? I mean, we're out there constantly looking to improve things. So we're looking for things that are broken so we can identify it, label it, and say, okay, that's the next thing I'm going to fix. But it turns into like this label making machine. We're just identifying a bunch of broken things, right? I've on the other end of that extreme, though, I've experienced and have had the opportunity to talk to some people that believe it's their responsibility to sweep everything under the rug, where they never acknowledge things that are broken. They never acknowledge that there is something that needs to get fixed. Do you find yourself more like in that sweet spot now where you are able to have some of those critical conversations that need to be had, but yet you also spend your time focusing on what's amazing and working?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. I remember my first year here as a superintendent, and again, there was a lot of good things happening here. But I had a board member ask me, I don't know, probably January of my first year, like, why are we constantly fixing things? And I mean, there were some things that they were broken. We needed to fix them, and we needed to do them right. But what I stressed to him was, you know, among the things you charged me with, and they charged me really with three things, that they wanted to focus on. Um, the first and foremost was let's make sure we're building the culture that we need here in our district, because we had a pretty high turnover rate, and some of those kinds of things, and let's work on the culture. And I told him, I said, if we allow things to just not get fixed, that's going to tear down our culture. When we set those things aside, like you're talking about, or we sweep them under the rug, or we just ignore them, they become, I'll use this analogy. So when we moved from Rock Springs to Colorado, we're moving all the things out of our house, and you're moving your couch, and you're moving this, and you're boxing things up. And there was a box that we sat down on the carpet in the basement when we moved in 9 years prior to that never moved. It was like part of it. It was just part of the house. We didn't even see it anymore, and if we just set things aside and we don't address it, that's what happens to them. It just becomes part of who we are and what we do. And we can't have that. Those things kill culture.
Because although you might not see it anymore, a guest comes down and they trip over it, or they do see it, and they're like, what is this eyesore?
Absolutely.
So you're sweeping it under the
did
rug.
You know this?
But other people are noticing. Yeah.
I did. Yeah, exactly. So, not that we need to constantly run around in fix it mode. And you're right. I mean, I feel like now in my fourth year in this role, very much in that sweet spot. I've been able to build a leadership team that, we're totally on the same page, and, I can trust them to do their jobs. And, I told some of them early on, I'm like, I trust you to do your job. Don't ask me to do your job for you. I've got my piece, you have yours. And if I don't trust you to do your job, I don't need you, but I do. So go do your thing, and if you make mistake, we'll fix it. But, at this point now, some of those things, the smaller things that'll come up as oh yeah, we need to fix that, they don't make it to my plate, because my leadership team now knows and is empowered to go and address those things, or to just say, hey, I'd like to move in a different direction here. I may not even know that it was something that, was that box laying on the floor, but they saw it and they're like, hey, I'm going to take care of this. And, that really helps you be in the sweet spot, because then, like we were talking before we came on, then I get to focus on things that aren't fix it or set it aside. I get to work with our teachers and focus on teaching and learning, because that's what we do. And, that to me, that's the sweet spot, is when I'm able to actually spend time on teaching and learning,
You use that term sweet spot. And I'm going to take that and kind of build off of something you said early on when you said you've been able to create this leadership team. When you're the superintendent, that's a primary role, responsibility is to develop leaders, some that are leaders already by their title and designation, and others that you want to try to foster, create, hire, whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. I'm curious, as you've grown as a leader, do you find yourself trying to create other leaders that work and function as you do as a leader, that work the same way and operate with the same mindset and principles and practices as Darrin? Or are you looking for people that fill your voids, people that might take on their strengths, maybe your weaknesses, or vice versa?
Right.
How does that work for you?
Well, I think you hit it on the head. I don't, when I'm hiring somebody. So, for example, I hired a new elementary principal 2 years ago, and I didn't need to hire me. We already have me. Let's hire somebody who brings something to the table that I don't. My strengths are in culture building, relationship building, in unity building, in developing leaders. I understand data. I'm not a data guy. I'm not going to be the guy who's like, oh, let's look at this data and tear this apart. but I have people who do have that strength, and that's good, and my job is to just help foster and grow them and support them and encourage them. And I mean, really coach them to, take the strengths they have and bring those to the table so that, we're actually working fully as a team. Again, I mean, if I have to be the one who has all the knowledge, that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
And that's not good for culture. And I look back at, my first year as an administrator, as an assistant principal, high school discipline attendance, because that's like the starter's job. But I think I had this mindset or this belief that I had to solve everybody's problems and I had to know everything. And I learned very quickly that not only is that not accurate, it's not productive in any way, shape, or form. It disempowers those that are around you. So in this role, being able to create and develop that leadership team, and some were hired and some were in place, and some were, doing good work there, and some had never been challenged to be leaders. And so I'm watching them grow into those roles. Yeah, I want them to bring their strengths to the table, and I don't necessarily want them to think like I do. What I want them to do is know what they're clearly good at, what they clearly value, and what's clearly important to them, and lead from that place. If they do that, man, that's awesome.
And that really is awesome. And it's refreshing to hear a leader acknowledge that and own that. But I also want to remind people that is difficult and challenging work. And I appreciate that you keep saying repeatedly that other times in your career, earlier in your career, you made these missteps. You might not have seen things this way. Mm-hmm. And I've been that way too. I've had my fair share of leadership experiences and opportunities, and I've made a ton of missteps. And the biggest misstep that I make is the one I'm hinting at right now. I tend to look at myself and say, well, I'm successful. So if I want other people to be successful, they just need to do things the way that I did them. I like some characteristics of me, so I need to make sure that other people have those same characteristics. When you're looking for people to fill your weaknesses or your voids, it's not an indictment on you. It's not saying you are horrible, so you need to find somebody else that's not as horrible. It's simply saying we all have different strengths and passions. Recognize that, flourish it, and grow in it. And like you said, the district already has you, and for your own sanity, you don't need to replicate you. Go out and find somebody else that can support you and fill you up. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Although
cool.
I'll be honest with you, there are days where I really feel like I could use a clone, I mean, especially recently, I really could use a clone.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah. Well, thankfully, you are out there and you're sharing your message with a lot of people, and you are growing people that are going to have similar mindsets and learn from you. You're sharing on this podcast, which 7 billion people will listen to, which is awesome. But there's still a couple people out there that might want to pick up on your story and your message in other ways, like print media, for example.
Yeah.
So thank God for people like Brian Aspinall, the code breaker out there, who said, Darrin, I got a project for you, man. Let's do this. Can you talk to us a little bit, for people that don't know who Brian is or what Codebreaker is? First of all, welcome to planet Earth. What is going on there? And how did you get hooked up, and what kind of work are you doing with the team?
What a cool experience this has been. And I'll start with this. This is the greatest example for why we as educators need to be connecting with each other across the globe. If I wasn't an actively connected person through Twitter, through all of our social media, there's no chance I connect with Brian. But I didn't connect with Brian through social media. I connected to Brian through a gentleman named Don Epps, who is a rock star middle school principal.
Baby.
That's right, absolutely, in Kansas. And Don and I have known each other through Facebook and Twitter for quite some time, and actually met in person at a job fair in February in Pittsburgh, Kansas, of all places.
Wow.
I'm wandering around. Oh my God, that's Don Epps. Walked over. He's like, oh my God, that's Darrin Peppard. And when I was working on the book, I just asked him about his experience with publishing, because I was kind of dabbling with a couple other publishers and felt like, it should be different than this. And Don said, you should connect with Brian Aspinall. And so I did. And holy smokes, I've told Brian this a dozen different times. I don't think he really realizes yet what he has created in Codebreaker. In a nutshell, the Codebreaker family are a whole bunch of people from all across the globe that are heretics, outliers, and disruptors. And, you know, we don't always have to do it the status quo. You know, there's other ways to go about the great work that we do. And Brian is the person that's amplifying our voice. You know, he's not only a great leader for Codebreaker, but obviously he's one of the greatest voices in the world right now on coding itself. You know, he's just making such impact, not only in Canada, but everywhere, with the work that he does. And Codebreaker, so it's codebreakeredu.com, if you want to check it out. Not only publishing books, but you know, putting together a group for consulting, for speaking, for just anything that we need. You know, we believe that professional development should look different, and that we all have a story to tell. And again, like I said, Brian's just that guy who's amplifying our voices.
That's awesome. And yeah, I think I feel like you are this perfect fit, and you called them a family, but I will use that word for this family. I've had an opportunity now to connect with a large section of your family, and the brotherhood and sisterhood that exists amongst you all is powerful. It's palatable. It's all for one for all, and yet you are not all from the same cookie cutter mold, which is so amazing. It truly is. It's like the island of misfit toys, but all these toys have a very specific purpose, and it's to bring smiles and joy to everybody's face. It's not like none of you are broken. You were all just made uniquely, and you celebrate the crap out of that. I love it, because that's what we need in this world right now. We don't need the cookie cutter mold. We've got enough of that. We don't need the PD by catalog. We need people that can inspire people to embrace their unique strengths and to just go out there and be awesome. I mean, that's your celebration right there, right? So
it is. Yeah.
So you connect with Brian, and Brian says, yep, let's make something happen. We've got some magic here. And then what's the rest of this journey?
Oh my goodness. It was crazy too. So I connected with Brian on a Thursday, let's say, or maybe it's a Tuesday. Let's go with Tuesday. It was a Tuesday. I had the book basically done. He's like, hey, send me what you've got. And the next morning I had a book contract. I mean, like 6:30 for me, because I'm in Colorado, so I'm Mountain Time. He's Eastern Time. I'm like, holy smokes, boom, book deal. We start cranking. He connects me with Daphne McMenemy, who
talk about an amazing person, right?
Holy cow. Yeah.
One of my favorite
you teach
people
coding
on the
in kindergarten. Are you kidding me? And
Yeah.
you edit books, and she's brilliant. She really is. And plays hockey. So there you go. But she's Canadian, so I think that explains that. But yeah, I mean, it was just like, late May, let's get on this thing. And Brian told me from the beginning, he's like, I think we can have your book out July 1st. And I'm thinking, wow, this guy's nuts.
So let me take a pause real quick. So people that might be thinking, oh, I've got a book idea. I want to get rolling with something. What he's describing right now is so far from the norm. So I want you to appreciate this. This is normal for a lot of people. A lot of people, once you get that green light and a publisher says, yeah, we'll do something, you're lucky if you get it out in a year. Mm-hmm. So you got a response back the next day. And then like within 2 months, this thing is going to print. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah, it was crazy. And so again, Don's like, hey, I'll connect you. I'm like, no. I'll reach out to Brian myself. I'm a big kid, but there were others who knew, that I was, still trying to get some response from some other publishers. And so that same day I got a text from somebody else who's like, hey, I know you're looking for a publisher. You should reach out to Brian. And it's not even a Codebreaker guy, but overnight, boom, book deal. We're talking the next day about, here's what we'd like to do here. Here's what we got to do here. Here's some things in the book we got to change. And then it was just, Brian said at Codebreaker, we have one speed, and it's go. And wow, was he right? Because the morning of July 1st, I woke up pretty early, mostly just, stuff on my mind regarding the district and, all the stuff we were going through. And, 5 o'clock in the morning or whatever, I look at my phone and I have a text from Brian and a text from Daphne, and both of them, it was the screenshot of my book on Amazon.
Wow.
And So yeah, morning of July 1st, that thing was live. And
Wow.
now it's right here in my hand.
That's
So,
cool.
yeah.
So let's talk about
Yeah.
it real quick. And
Yeah.
some people don't necessarily like to do this, but you strike me as somebody that does. So give us some of this. What's
Sure.
the secret sauce within this road to awesome? Knowing that
Yeah.
you're a Wyoming guy, I know the roads in Wyoming, they're long, but they wind and they go
Yeah.
up and down a lot. Just like the
Yeah.
roads in Colorado. So if you're listening
Oh
to this
yeah.
and you're in Nebraska or Iowa, get those images out of your head.
Yeah. Those
Those
are
aren't
not the
necessarily
roads
the
I'm
roads
talking
to
about.
awesome. Those are not the
No.
roads to awesome. The roads to awesome
No.
are like your roads, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So just
Yeah.
talk to us about this.
Yeah. So, and actually, you talk about the road, and I don't know how well you can see that, but
Yeah.
this photo, that actually is shot about 15 minutes from where I am sitting, into the Rocky Mountains. So, that there's a great story behind the cover concept too. But yeah, so the road itself, I referred to it a little bit earlier. Working at in that first role as an assistant principal, and we're sitting in this meeting, and I tell a little bit of this story in the book. Actually, it's kind of one of the driving pieces in there. We're sitting in a meeting, and I'm facilitating because we're trying to solve two just huge questions in education, and I say that very sarcastically because while we were serious, we were trying to solve what are we going to do about hats and what are we going to do about cell phones. Well, you're wearing a hat. My cell phone's sitting right here. Who cares, right? But I mean, we're going down this road from anything from, oh, let's get the calculator things to, well, if you just take one away, or I don't even know where we were going. And one of the social workers on the staff raised her hand. Her name's Spring. And she hit me with like two lightning bolts in a row. And on the surface, they're pretty simplistic questions, but man, they represented this massive change for us. And it's very simply, they were, why does it always have to be about what they do wrong?
Mm.
Why can't it be what they do right? And wham. I mean, for me, it seriously split the road in two. And, I look back on that as kind of a defining moment of who I am now as a leader. And, it's some of the decisions I've made, not only just as a leader, but as a father, as a husband, as a human being. It's so easy to be negative. And so one of the tagline actually for my business, Road to Awesome, is two roads diverged and I took the road to awesome. And so I look at it as I had this choice. I could stay on this easy road that was, let's hammer the kids, let's hammer that punishment leads to compliance. By the way, it doesn't. Or, let's take this difficult road, and, that difficult meandering road of changing culture and just changing the way we looked at things. That led me to moving to the other assistant principal role, where I was in charge of curriculum and instruction, was able to develop 3 just phenomenal career academies at that high school that are still highly functional, recognized by the U.S. government, all kinds of cool stuff. Then to the principal, and then of course to this role. And, there's times where there's bumps in the road still, and, I think back to just over the last few months, going through, all we focused on were, masks and barriers and planning and how we best could now use the word uncharted waters or, unprecedented. Holy cow, we have used the heck out of those 2 words. And pivot, man, we pivot constantly now, don't we? But, when you get those moments, like I was talking about earlier, to get back to focusing on teaching and learning, that's, to me, that's what Road to Awesome is about. And the core of the book is what I kind of look at almost like my leadership manifesto that came from all of that. And I believe that, great leaders are going to focus on things like culture and coaching and building positive culture. And yeah, there's all that other minutia that we have to deal with. But if as leaders, we lead from our values, from what's truly important, if we can align those with the values of our community, that's awesome leadership.
Yeah.
So, and then there's the whole thing is just told through just tons of stories, from all the way back to when I was a little kid to as recent as last year, awesome. including the cover story. So a senior or a young man who graduated from West Grand High School last year. His name's Angel Castillo, one of the greatest kids I've ever been around. Incredible artist. 3 straight years, Colorado State science fair, he was the kid chosen to do the artwork for the cover. So how do you not choose a kid to do that? And so the cover concept, and even right on the copyright page, Angel's mentioned for that work. So
that's awesome.
So yeah,
that's very cool. And you know what I love so much about that metaphor, playing off Robert Frost, Two Rows of Birds and a Yellow Wood, is I think there's multiple layers to it. It's not as simplistic as, okay, you just always have to choose. Am I going to go the hard way or the easy way? I mean, there's so much more to it. Here in Michigan, our governor was elected on a platform, and her campaign slogan was, "We're going to fix the damn roads." That was all she talked about the entire time she was trying to get elected. Was fix the damn roads. Here in Michigan, we are notorious for having roads that are just filled with potholes. They are a mess because of our winters. And she said her goal was to fix the damn roads, because there are 2 ways to fix roads. One is to just constantly fill and patch and recover and just just keep driving down the same damn roads, as she said. Or you rip them up. You say, we're going to take the time. We're going to invest our energy to lay the foundation and create the right road going to the right place the right way. And I feel like that's kind of what your book uncovers too. It's not just, you always have to pick which path you're going to go down, but sometimes that road has to be created by you as well. You have to go down and create your own yellow brick road to follow. I feel like that's kind of what you've done throughout your own career too. I mean, you could have just stayed put and been comfortable, but because you're always looking for that next challenge for yourself personally and to grow others professionally, you're willing to create your own road. So I'm curious, thinking about the image I have in my head right now of the yellow brick road. There's this magical land of Oz that all roads lead to. Where's Oz for you? Is it a physical place? Is it doing something? Is it what is the place that you're after? That where do your roads go?
I think my road certainly at a point will, and I'm starting to do some of this work, but at some point, because it's such a huge passion of mine, would be just simply to grow and coach leaders. I had that opportunity first as a principal to grow assistant principals, and I have it as a superintendent, and in some of the leadership consulting work that I do, working with principals around the country and school districts around the country. Leadership matters so much. And I see leaders struggle, and I see leaders lose sight of what really matters. Hell, I lose sight of what matters sometimes, and so those the 2 things that I think that are my biggest passions related to that are leadership and coaching. I mean, we all need coaching. Coaching has a bad stigma around it, that if you have a teacher you're on the fence with, get them a coach. Or you have a leader who's struggling, get them a coach. But why wouldn't we do that for great ones too? And so to me, continuing to grow that pathway and work with and help grow leaders everywhere, whether that's through consulting or through coaching, or maybe writing another book at some point in time, or even doing the keynote speaking. Whatever it takes, I want to be able to just continue to coach leaders. I don't see myself leaving this superintendency for a bigger district. This is a great size. I get a chance to really interact with everybody, from my kids in our early childhood center all the way through our high school and that kind of thing. But it's that passion is for growing leaders and supporting leaders in any way I can. So I don't know if that's Oz, but it's on the way.
That's a good vision. And I love how you recognize where you are right now really is the sweet spot, because there's always that uncomfortable tension behind looking for what's next and recognizing where you are. And you don't have that grass is greener mentality. You recognize that where you are right now, as a leader, you're in this amazing place where any little change you make has a noticeable difference. And sometimes you go to these bigger places and man, you have to literally move mountains just so that people can feel it and see it. But yet you also don't want to be comfortable there. You want to continue to challenge yourself and realize that you do have this value that you are willing to share with other people. And sometimes those two paths can be two paths that you can walk down simultaneously. You don't have to choose, and that's fun. That's good. So Darrin, we have talked a lot. I mean, and I don't want you to just read your book to us. I want people to go out there and buy this book, get this book, hear from you, learn from you, grow from you. So in a second, I'm going to ask for you to share how people can get it and how they can contact you and all of that. But before that, out of all the things that you share, all of the wisdom that you have, if you had to summarize it and say, here's where, if I'm consulting, if I'm keynoting, this is where I drop the mic and walk off the stage. This is the thing I want people to remember the most about you, your work, your vision, your message, whatever. What would you say is your mic drop moment? What is that thing that you want people to connect to Darrin?
It's two words: leadership matters. That's the bottom line. I talk about this in anything I do. And I believe that the absolute most powerful lever we have to impact change in our schools is through leadership. And I know people may push back and say, well, wait a minute, what about a great high quality teacher in the classroom? Those will exist in isolation when you have poor leadership, or they'll leave. But if you have great leadership, it's not just that one existing in isolation. It's somebody who's willing to coach and grow and have more than one great teacher. Why not have all of them be great teachers? Because you're investing in yourself and growing them. There's 100 different things I could say. Well, but what about? It's just my belief, my very strong belief, that leadership is the lever that triggers all of those things.
Oh, well said. And I would argue that you are leading people there, and you're leading people from afar. I'll take myself, for example, just being able to follow your journey on social media and hear from you and even have this conversation. You've grown me and you've inspired me, and hopefully that will have exponential impact on others as well. So I appreciate awesome. That. I appreciate you taking the time to do all this. So those people that do want to connect with you, that are saying, wow, man, I want to learn from this man. I want him to coach me up and grow me. How do they connect with you?
So all the social media platforms, I am Darrin M. Peppard on all of those. So Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, my Facebook page, all are Darrin M. Peppard. My website is roadtoawesome.net. And also, of course, Codebreaker EDU is where you can connect with me as well, along with the rest of the Codebreaker team. So those are the big areas. The other one I would add too, a half-hour video podcast show that I do with Bradley W. Skinner and Dr. Frank Rudneski out of New Jersey. That's called the Empower Half Hour. That's another great way to follow us, and not just learn from me, but learn from Bradley, learn from Frank, and learn from the amazing guests that we host every Wednesday night at 8:00 Eastern time. And we do that live on Facebook and Twitter. So those are the great ways you can find me. The book is on Amazon.com. For those of you north of the border, like Brian, it's Amazon.ca. You can find it on there. Or on my website, actually, on the homepage of my website, you can order a copy of the book, and I'll autograph it and send it right out to you.
Awesome. And I'll have all of that stuff for those of you that actually do like to read the show notes. It's there. Otherwise, just go back and hit that little rewind 15-second thing a couple of times, listen to all that again, and then go directly into your Twitter, Instagram, Facebook apps, and follow this man. You will be inspired and you will not be disappointed. Well, Darrin, I cannot thank you enough for finding time in your crazy busy schedule to chat with me. Selfishly, I appreciate it. I always grow and learn from these amazing conversations. So I appreciate it. And I'm sure, like I said, the 7 billion people listening to this are just inspired and ready to go lead and take that road to awesome, man. I appreciate you.
Right on, man. Dave, I appreciate you having me on. This was a lot of fun. And likewise, man, you stretched me and grew me a little bit today too. I appreciate it, man.